Hello everyone! Welcome to Point Ruston. We're testing out kind of a new beach here on the Tacoma side of things, and we thought we would show off because we've got this great low tide today. But this is our last negative low tide beach walk for the summer, which makes us quite sad. We've really enjoyed getting out and being able to bring you these digital programs, being able to go out and find cool stuff and still feel connected to our community members like yourself. So we do appreciate you tuning in, and thank you so much for all of the shares and subscriptions and donations that have come in through all of these digital programs. We're going to continue to offer interesting and fun and cool learning opportunities into the fall and to the winter. So stay tuned for that. We're also getting ready for our big Make Waves fundraiser, which is happening in, like a month, in September, the end of September. So we're really pumped about that. But for now...
And you should get involved with that if you aren't already.
Oh, yeah.
Just say it. Just
yeah.
say it.
We'll be badgering you about our fundraiser coming up soon. But for now, we're going to just explore this low tide area. So feel free to pop into the comments where you're watching from and maybe how many people are watching. That's always really great information for us to have. We love to be able to show that to our funders to say like, hey, look how many people watched and how many people engaged with us and how many people asked questions and learned and had fun with us. So please do that. But I'm going to flip this camera around to give you a good view of exactly where we are in the world. We're along the Tacoma waterfront, or more precisely, the Ruston edge of things. You can see Commencement Bay off in the distance. Lots of heavy industry happening over there today. We've got some gorgeous clouds out, adding some interest to the sky. We've got some heavy development here as well.
Point Ruston, if you haven't been here in a while, is totally redone. There's a great walking trail along the water, and all these fancy apartments going in. So it's a pretty happening place.
Because, yeah, who wouldn't want to have this as their view? What an absolutely gorgeous day. All right, so we are, we always kind of start up at the high tide line. We can see the strand line, and because we're in a much more heavily populated and more utilized area, there's a lot more evidence of humans here. I'm noticing there's quite a bit of trash. So Stina, of course, and myself will pick up a good handful of this before we leave here today. Leave the beach cleaner than we found it.
Really get involved with the cool cleanup coming up. There's the Tacoma Shoreline Survey on September 12th, and that is a human-wide effort all along every inch of the Tacoma shoreline to take a day, clean it up, and see how much trash is out here. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. We can link that in.
Yeah, that's a very tangible way that you can help support our marine environments. Also, big thank you to Melissa for donating to our organization through that donate link. We really appreciate that. That is wonderful. If you would like to donate through our website, that's also an opportunity that we have, harborwildwatch.org. But yeah, there's always interesting things in the strand line. See a piece of bone,
cigarette butt,
some plastic, some feathers. There's a lot of brick here. So these redder rocks that you see are kind of man-made. There's also a little bit of, I wonder what the origins of that piece of glass are. But all of this red that you see here is all brick. My guess is that there was an old brick building or maybe even a brickyard around here.
Around the Tacoma shoreline, you'll see there's lots of spots where there's these old pilings. And so there used to be a pretty robust mill industry, which you build a mill, it burns down. You build a mill, it burns down. So there's a wide history of that along the Tacoma waterfront. So we'll probably peek over at some.
Yeah, let's go explore. Also, thank you, Connor, for your donation. We really do appreciate that. It's wonderful.
Kind of speaking of industry and development and stuff, checking out this storm drain.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Interesting. I know it hasn't rained in a while, but
we did get some rain last night.
Oh, did we?
We did, not a lot. You slept.
But storm drains like this are kind of a really nice opportunity to talk about how our actions upland impact the marine environment. So anything that's on the ground, water is super sneaky and picks up pollution wherever it may be, and carries that pollution with it out to places like the Puget Sound and Greater Salish Sea through things like these storm drains. So,
ooh, the echo is here.
Yeah,
let's just see if you can echo. Oh, that sounds so cool.
Hear the cars.
You can hear cars on the road.
Any pollution from cars can get picked up. You can tell this is car connected.
But yeah, so this water flows unfiltered. A lot of people don't realize that our storm drain water is not filtered, and it's gonna flow just directly straight out into the bay here. We have a couple of other videos that talk about stormwater, and those can be found on our YouTube page. They're a couple of years old, but the information is still good. Basically, if we can eliminate either water traveling or eliminate contaminants on the ground, that's gonna help keep our stormwater healthier for the animals out here. That first big rain that we'll get in September, October is gonna push a lot of the contaminants that have been accumulating in our yards and lawns and roadways, and it's all gonna kind of wash down here. So that first big rain is always a little scary.
Pretty sobering studies that have been done with salmon and the stormwater runoff. So salmon do not like polluted water, and there's been some pretty sad studies where they use that stormwater to see how long the salmon can survive in it.
And in straight stormwater, it's like minutes that they survive. It's very toxic.
Problems in the creeks in more urban areas with returning salmon, which of course are important for orcas. And we saw orcas yesterday, and we want to protect them because they're amazing. So,
yeah. So we've traveled down the beach, quite a significant tidal height. We're parked up there before, and we've walked down a bit. And so this is kind of a steeper beach, so we don't have to walk as far to get to the shoreline. And we're kind of now in the middle of the intertidal zone. So let's start poking around, Stina, and seeing what life we can find here. I'm noticing, of course, this green ulva, the sea lettuce, this algae that really carpets our whole intertidal zones here in the Northwest. And Stina picked a perfect rock to turn because it's fairly small. And I know that she'll be strong enough to lift it and place it back. So those little shore crabs that just scurried out from underneath this rock are now not going to be in danger of being squashed. But there's some cool critters right on the top here. Look at that.
Isopods, or kind of the roly-poly or pill bug of the sea. They literally roll up.
They're roly-polies. Yeah. The ones that you have in your yard are crustaceans, believe it or not. So this is kind of the original woodlouse, roly-poly, pill bug, potato bug, whatever you want to call them.
Maybe share in the comments, what do you call?
Yeah, what do you call those little guys under logs in your yard? And those are crustaceans, which is crazy because we often associate crustaceans with saltwater or freshwater, and here they are just thriving in your own backyard.
I love the color variation too.
Yeah, different
come in
patterns.
That classic gray color, but these are demonstrating some variation in that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So Connor's asking if we can explain why the bays are reddish right now. And I was going to come look at the shore and see what our water looks like down here, because you are right. We've had a very tomato soupy past couple of weeks. There's been a large bloom of a dinoflagellate, which is this weird, cool species that turns the water red. And you've probably heard of the term red tide before. That's a really common name for basically any color change to the water. But what a red tide means in this case, and what the dinoflagellates that we're seeing is a species called Noctiluca. And that means night light. And it's also called sea sparkle or bioluminescence, and it creates this beautiful blue glow at nighttime. You can't see it during the day, though. It's just too bright, and they don't make a ton of light. But if you go out to those really tomato soup, the orangey, reddish colored bays and inlets where it's kind of collecting due to the currents and tides, and you go out at night after dark, you will see sparkles everywhere your hand splashes, which is so cool.
It's a very fun time to do night dives right now.
Yeah, night swimming.
Just like swimming in sparkles.
Very magical. But yeah, so we've got kind of interesting mix of substrates here. We've got some sand, and usually where we're finding sand at these lower tidal heights, we'll see these two worms. These are a polychaete species, which means they have a jointed body and they have little bitty gills at each little juncture, and sometimes some spines to go along with that. And these are filter feeders, so they'll come out and they'll extend some feeding tendrils to grab whatever plankton or tasty bits are floating by in the water. During low tide, of course, they just kind of close up and sit down in their tube. Every once in a while, you'll hear them as they move up and down inside their tube. It kind of makes a little zzz kind of sound. A little tube worm symphony, if you will. Here's unfortunately, a common intertidal area in areas where humans interact with the water. Oh, for whatever reason, car tires just last forever in the water. So this has created a little tide pool. I wonder if there's any little creatures hanging out in here. A lot of the smaller sea creatures, of course, they're not looking at the big picture of like, oh, that's a piece of trash, I'm not going to hang out there. They're going to see a pool of water and a way to survive during the low tide or just accidentally get caught up in there. I'm not seeing anything, but we'll come back and check too. Sometimes they see us and scatter. Lots of evidence of animals here. We've got some shells. This looks like a bent nose clam. Let's see if I can rinse it off for you. So this clamshell has just a little kind of lip to the end of it, and then there is that hole there, and you can pop in the comments what you think made that hole. It's one of my favorite carnivores of the intertidal zone, the largest marine snail we have, at least intertidally. We have the Oregon Triton snail's pretty darn big too, but intertidally the biggest one has got to be the moon snail, and this little round mark here is how you know that this clam was eaten by a moon snail. So they have a tongue that's like a chainsaw. It has this radula section to it that scrapes and scrapes and scrapes. And gosh, most of these clamshells that we're seeing, here's another one. There's another one.
The moon snails are pretty smart to go after these bent.
There's another and another.
They see, compared to something like a butter clam, which has a really thick shell, the bent nose clams are a lot thinner and more fragile, so probably an easier tasty treat for those snails.
Yeah. Here, I just noticed this is kind of cool, and this is a wash up, and this is an oyster shell, and it's actually quite pretty. The outer kind of tougher calcium carbonate has worn away, but I'm noticing there are these little marks in it. These little tiny divots are most likely from where this shell was eaten and eroded away by what's called a boring sponge. And they're anything but boring, but they bore into their substrates. They're bright, bright yellow, which is really kind of fantastic when you see them alive. They really stand out. Let's see, what else? Some of the rocks here are like concrete rocks. Some of the rocks here were pushed here by glaciers many thousands of years ago.
There's an intertidal melon.
Oh, see a melon. Stina and I are always saying how much we hate finding fruit on the beach, not because it's dangerous or anything like that, but only because it gets us excited about what we're finding. And then we're like, oh, shoot. It's not a strawberry nudibranch, it's a strawberry. Oh, another sea creature. Is that a dogfish that ran by? Ooh, piece of corrugated roofing here has become great habitat for all kinds of little crabs.
Oh, you want to see the crabs too?
Hi, Pupper. Aren't you so cute?
You're a lot fuzzier than some of the stuff we see. Hi.
Yeah, we're not used to talking about mammals. At least not friendly mammals. Sometimes we see mammals like yesterday we saw some orcas. We were out at Tongue Point, and just off the edge of the large kelp bed, a small pod of orcas came through, and we got to actually hear them breathing before we could see them, which was incredible. And then Carly was able to spy some amazing river otter activity. They were just kind of hanging out, swimming right in front of her. And Stina and I were super jealous because we were off looking at urchins and sea stars and other invertebrate life. Oh, here's evidence of animals. We've got some gulls. There's been plenty of gulls here, and I'm actually glad they flew away because they were screaming right before we went live, and we thought for sure, oh gosh, those guys are going to interrupt our broadcast. Oh, here's some larger tube worms. So we saw those tiny little ones before. This one here is the Vancouver feather duster worm, and they have just really exquisitely beautiful plumes that come out. They're kind of maroon and gray striped, and they really do look like a feather duster, and they're gathering stuff from the water. So see all this just kind of stuff floating? A lot of that is edible organic material that the animals will scoop up. It may be live plankton, it could be fish poop, it could be who knows what else, but oh, a different bird track. Oh yeah, check that out. If that were much, much larger, we would say dinosaur, but
seriously, they are related.
They are related. Yeah, people think the dinosaurs went extinct. No, they just turned into birds. So we're into a little bit drier habitat now, kind of away from the soupy sand and more into this darker. Gosh, fall also drives us crazy because you get excited about something orange, and no, it's a rock. Oh, there goes a heron. And a few more gulls. Ooh, and Stina, I just caught a whiff of this anaerobic bacteria that is really giving a very strong low tide smell to this section of the beach. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yuck. You get all kinds of
This has some really funny
nasty,
names.
stinky stuff.
Yeah, this sand right here, you can see it reminds me of Yellowstone.
Oh yeah, the sulfurous.
Sulfury, and then even the colors sometimes do weird things like
So, all of you watching this digitally, be glad that we don't have smell-o-vision right now, because, ooh, man, is it pungent out here. Yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing or an unnatural thing. This is found on beaches all over. It's merely bacteria that thrives in the absence of oxygen. So when you get, oh, you almost got squirted. There's some pitted clams here, I think, in these old remains of pilings. But anytime you have like small particle size or not a ton of wave action that can reduce the amount of oxygen, then this bacteria moves in and really thrives. But I'm gonna take a look at the, oh, woo! I just bent down and I got 3 feet closer to the ground, and ooh, man. But I did find this cool creature. We got a little grainy hand hermit crab here. And this one right here is living in a snail shell. So hermit crabs don't make their shells, they have to find them or take them is what's more likely what happens. The snails build their shells from calcium carbonate, and they kind of build them around themselves. So as the snail grows, their shell grows. With hermit crabs, they need to get, ooh, Stina almost got squirted again. They need to find a shell that fits them. And so if I'm kind of holding him at an angle, hoping that he'll come out and try to roll himself into the correct direction. He's being very cautious for good reason. This is the whole reason these crabs have these shells, is to protect their soft body, and they can withdraw fully into their shell. And look, you can see the little tiny legs at the very back of their abdomen there. Those are used to kind of hold on and curl into the shell, and that very back portion of it is soft, like a worm. Oh, and he is tickling me. Ow! Their tips of their pinchers and their feet are very, very sharp. So we'll watch how this critter moves around. You can also see the antennas. So the antennas reach outward to try to feel anything coming from behind them, which is cool. And then the eye stalks are particularly long for a crab, so that they can kind of stretch upward and reach out. So cool to see. Ooh, what did you find?
So kind of thinking back to the evidence of past industries in this place. Something fun about diving along the Tacoma waterfront or doing a low tide beach comb is finding evidence of these old bottles. So I noticed this one doesn't have like the screw top ridges.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of cool
It
old
almost looks like a wine carboy.
Yeah.
Like for making wine.
But glass is something that's inert, so I'm not as worried about glass on the beach as I am on plastic. Maybe if you're walking barefoot, that could be an issue.
That would be a threat, but it's not
generally
going to
this
harm the sea life.
Yeah, this will just kind of become habitat, so I can see there's limpets, barnacles, there's even a little woody chitin hanging out in between, and full bottles often become homes for octopus. So if you are picking up like glass bottles on the beach or
inspect them.
Yeah, make sure before you put it in the trash, you have fully excavated whoever might be living inside, because when you have an octopus climb out of the trash can later, that is not good PR for anybody's beach cleanup.
No.
So, don't do that.
Yeah, one of the unfortunate things about trash in the intertidal zone is everything ends up being habitat. So if it's here for very long, it's going to get barnacles on it, it's going to get tube worms on it or algae on it, and then it kind of makes it even harder to remove it. If it's a plastic type material, it's also going to absorb any chemicals that may be present in the water as well. Glass does not do that, and so even glass that's been around for hundreds of years doesn't contaminate the environment, aside from maybe slicing your foot on it. So ideally we would not see any trash, but of course anytime you've got humans, we're not always the best. But we try to remedy that by making the beach better every place we go. We try to pick something up and remove things that shouldn't be here. And then our main job is just to teach you about the life here so that more people care about it. So thank you for everyone who shares our videos. That really helps to get our message to reach even farther, which is great. And then of course you can pop into the comments where you're watching from so that we know. That's always interesting for us. But here we've got some snail eggs. So that snail shell that the hermit crab was occupied is the same species that lays these eggs here. This is probably a frilled dogwinkle. There's one. Snail. And you can compare the snail's insides to that of the crab. The snail has this trap door. That's the kind of orangey section right there. And then there's the fleshy foot, which is how they suction cup and crawl around. Snails rely on mucus to kind of cut the friction as they crawl along, and so snails kind of have a reputation for being slimy. And the slimiest snail, of course, that we have here is the biggest. That's the big moon snail. But this one is great because you can kind of count the rings on this operculum here. They grow with the snail. It's tricky to see the rings, but maybe 4 or 5 on that particular one. I'll let Sina put it back where we found it. Since snails don't move a lot, we like to not really move them from their home. It's never a good idea to really transplant animals because you may think you've put them back in a suitable habitat, but it totally doesn't work for them. So it's best if we leave animals where we find them. That's a part of our beach etiquette that Stina and I begin every single public beach walk with. We teach people how to be a good guest at the beach, and we use the acronyms of the word or the letters of the word guest to help remind people. So this is something really easy that you can pass on to people and share. In fact, we were out at a beach yesterday and we heard people saying touch with one gentle finger, and it just really made our hearts smile because these were people that we didn't know, but they were practicing good beach etiquette. So the letters of the word guest, we start with G, which is for gently touching, and we recommend you touch animals no stronger than you would touch your own eyelid. So if you're gentle with your own eye, it won't hurt the animals. It's also a great idea to get your fingers wet because we're touching sea creatures and these are all cold-blooded animals. So it'll cool down your fingertips as well as rinse away any sunscreen or food particles or the oils on your skin. Ooh, yeah, look at that gross, disgusting, stinky.
I'm going to gently touch this.
No, that's a smell that'll stay with you. So
this is that bacteria that's
Yeah.
like growing these chains, and it looks like a fuzz, like it looks like hair.
Fuzzy. Yeah, it's definitely the conditions are perfect for it here. So it's thriving and growing really, really
gosh.
large and big.
Look, it's like crab covered, and it's like a Yeti crab.
Buddy, look at you. Yeah, this bacteria is taking over everything, even this black clawed mud crab, which I'm assuming that's what this is. It's really hard to look at those identifying features. Wow.
That is funky.
Being in a environment where you want to match your surroundings, this is taking it one step extra. Wow. And this rock here illustrates our second point for beach etiquette. We say use your head, which means we want to use your head as a size guide for which rocks to flip. So I could muscle over this large rock here. I'm strong enough to flip it back and look at the animals underneath. But what I'm not strong enough to do is to place this rock back where I found it by lifting it instead of just rolling it. And if I don't lift it, I'm going to crush the animals underneath. So by using your head and utilizing a smaller rock that you can pick up with one hand or straight up is ideal. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to find rocks that are perfectly head-shaped. Some of them are wide, some are flat, some are long. But generally, if you can lift it straight up without really hurting yourself, you're probably not going to hurt the animals that are underneath it as well. So, Stina, what do you say we head the other direction and go check out the other side of the beach? Oh, let's peek at the pilings first. Good idea. So that's U for use your head. E is for everything stays at the beach, and everything stays not just here at Point Ruston, but everything stays in the microhabitat where you found it. So if you find a crab under one rock, put it back underneath that rock. With our snail, we placed it back in the exact spot that we found it. Animals are particular about where they live, so we want to respect that. So everything stays.
Oh yeah, there's a nice big ochre star.
Ooh. Oh yeah, look, we've got a beautiful purple ochre star here clinging onto the underside of this rock. Such a cool thing to see. We love to see the ochre stars because they are a keystone species, which means they have a role to play in eating all of this stuff that you see here to create new habitat for other species. They also control populations of herbivores like the grazers, limpets, chitons, that sort of thing, which they kind of keep everything balanced. Similar to wolves do, or like a cougar might in a forest habitat. The predators really have their place, and when they're removed or their populations dwindle, we see that cascading effect. So these ochre stars are a keystone species. What letter were we on? S?
Everything stays, so.
Yeah, so that's E. So S is for step lightly on the beach. And Stina and I always practice safe stepping with closed-toed shoes, either sandals or these fancy yellow boots. You're getting lots of comments on your boots, by the way. People really, they're pretty fabulous.
They're my last beach walk boots. The best out my fancy.
Right. See, all the best for our viewers. But yeah, step lightly on the beach. You don't want to squash creatures or step on delicate creatures.
Running across this, of course, I mean, you could hurt yourself.
Yeah, this is definitely not a running.
Everything's slippery, so even if you're just like in a sandy spot, slip, barnacles, no mercy.
That will get you no mercy.
And while we always carry a first aid kit with us,
I hate to use it.
It always means somebody had a bad day, so
step lightly. And then our final is T is for take your belongings. So take the trash that you brought with you to the beach. Take your flip-flops that you took off because they weren't working for you. Take your towels and your... Yeah, all of that. Take your belongings.
I found a little, it looks like a dead crab, but it is indeed just the old shell of a crab that's bigger and better somewhere out in the world. And this is the molt of a red rock female. Which, because it's not alive, you can see the little branches that hold the eggs, even the ovipores, all that good stuff for a lady crab to have lots of little babies. And then, of course, the empty shell, which you can see the gills.
Nobody's home.
But she would, take her claws her legs, her eyeballs, antennas, all these little mouth parts. Very delicate. You never get bit by a crab. Probably just get pinched or poked. But that mouth is not a biting mouth. But yeah, this is just the empty shell. That means there's a bigger red rock crab somewhere else.
Somewhere out there. So cool to see. Yeah, this is...
If you're really lucky, you'll find the soft, freshly molted crab right next to the mold.
Yeah, they get about 30% bigger with each molt, so it's a kind of a drastic change when you see the two right next to each other. What are you seeing over there, Stina? I see lots of these orange bryozoans. Little encrusting organisms. No, it's probably the same. So maybe we'll just hang out over here. Ah, that's a good rock to talk about.
Jingle shell rock. Oh wait, it's not Christmas yet. Sorry. Rachel did that
Not
joke
quite.
once, and it's so funny to
I
me.
do it every year too. Oh, and here's a cool, little bit different snail than we normally see on these rocks. This one, I'm gonna have to look it up because I don't off the top of my head recognize this species. But I can tell it's a snail because it's got that spiraled shell. It has the operculum and the foot that withdraw inside when touched. And it was suction cupped pretty well on the rock.
Sorry, snail. Holding things low to the ground is important because if you do drop them from a shorter height, it's much more pleasant for them than if I were to hold it far up and drop it from a standing height.
Yeah,
So I have a male black-clawed mud crab. It is doing the defense position here.
The stand back, I'm crabby.
But it's also really funny because really it's like just kind of frozen. Like I'm not actually that scared of you because
You're in no danger, Stina. But he's really trying to bluff his way into making you think you're gonna get injured. That purple coloration is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Lives in the mud, has black claws, black-clawed
Black-clawed mud crab. Which their species name is really quite pretty. Lopopanopolis bellis, which means beautiful little crab, which is great. Dina, would you take a picture of those? Yeah, the snails. We use an app called iNaturalist, which helps to collect biodiversity data for scientists all around the world. So we'll take a photo. It's got the geographic location and a timestamp on it, so that helps. Oh yeah, we can talk about jingles, sure. Sorry, I'm wandering around looking for more stuff. I forgot. We had cool stuff to talk about. But yeah, the iNaturalist app lets you kind of, it uses artificial intelligence to identify, and then it also uses crowdsourcing. So other members who may be an authority or have some experience will say, oh no, it's not that species, it's this species, or that kind of thing. But we're checking out this species right here now. These are called jingle shells, and they're good for more than just a funny punny joke. These are filter feeders. So they're kind of similar to like oysters or mussels. They have two shells. The bottom shell attaches to the rock and the top shell conforms over the animal's body. So they're a very thin species. They're not very large.
I'm kind of hoping that I'd find the
inner shell. Yeah, these are outer shells right here.
Because the bottom shell has a hole in it where, again, that mussel attaches to the rock, and then that lets this top shell kind of open and close.
And
like
when
bright orange.
Yeah, when they have their inside of their body is like, oh my gosh, Tina, can you see this tiny hermit crab?
Oh my gosh.
I don't even think he has a shell. He's so tiny.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm also seeing over here, there's a slipper snail.
Oh
which
yeah.
looks super similar to the
jingles?
jingle, but
they
kind
move.
of have a little
Get a
bump
little
on their
hook.
top in there. But they have another really cool shell inside where it actually looks like a little slipper that you can put your foot into.
And these broken off jingle shells are showing you that really beautiful kind of iridescence that's common in bivalves. So we're kind of most famous with pearls that are formed in oysters. And it's the exact same material that the pearl is made out of. It's called nacre or nacre, depending on who you ask. But and this on the large shell is often referred to as mother of pearl because it's the source, the cause of it. And pearls form whenever an irritant gets into the body tissues of one of those bivalves. And in order to stop it from irritating, they put a layer of smooth shell around it. And they'll just keep doing that. They keep coating it and keep coating it and keep coating it. So the larger pearls are formed longer ago. So they're older. And they always say the surefire way to tell if a pearl is a natural pearl or a created pearl is to rub it on your teeth, because you can feel the little microscopic sort of bumps in the texture of it with your teeth, but you can't feel them with your fingers or your hands. Oh, a fish! Oh yeah.
Mud crabs. So right here, it kind of looks wormy.
Very wormy. Hello, wormy.
Prickleback species.
Yeah, it looks to be.
Dark
Hard
color.
to tell when they're so small. The tiny defining characteristics of, what kind of color is their eyeball and how long are their fins and do they have any stripes or patterns becomes more difficult to identify.
This is a fish that's well adapted for the intertidal zone because it can breathe through its skin.
Yeah, we don't have to go rescuing this animal and sticking it back into the water. In fact, that would probably put him at higher risk for being eaten. Right now, he's got a safe spot underneath this rock with a few crabs that don't seem to bother it. And then since they can breathe through their skin, he's only got about another hour or two before the tide comes back up to this location. So we'll make sure to put it back on. And this is where lifting the rock to place it back can be helpful, because you can offset it or, tuck an extra little rock in there just to give a tiny bit more space so that we don't actually just squash the animal. All of these are great ways for you to interact and learn more about the beach without leaving a negative impact. Sorry for the unsteady cam footage. I'm navigating this very treacherous beach here, trying not to step on anything and keeping my eyes out for interesting things that we could show off. We're kind of at the tail end of a low tide series, so the tides have been low for the past week or so, and tomorrow they'll no longer be in the negative. So
At least
during daytime hours.
We'll still get full moons and new moons, and you still get these extreme tides, but then they're at 4 in the morning.
Our seagull friend has found a red rock crab. Got a good snack.
There's definitely negative tides happening all year round. But
Yeah, so this is our
in the
last
morning.
daytime low tide. We will try to offer you some nighttime digital beach walks during the winter months. It can be a little tricky because of the weather, but if we can get some nice clear nights that aren't too windy, we'll go out to the beach at night.
Or we probably will go out and it will still be windy.
Yeah,
We have some lapel mics coming in. So
Yes.
maybe that will...
Maybe some technology might help us beat the wind noise. It's always a little dangerous sticking your hand into one of these puddles where the sediment has been stirred up, because
am I feeling brave?
what are you gonna go in for? Are you gonna get pinched by a hidden red rock crab?
That's a rock.
It's a rock. Sometimes we get excited about rocks. In fact, a lot of time we get excited about rocks. Cool to see. Since I do have my wet shoes on, I can walk out a little bit, see if there's anything even deeper in this water. I do notice we've got more algae growth, and under the water, it looks beautiful. You can really tell how it gets that sea lettuce name. It looks like salad out here. And all of this is really great habitat for things like juvenile fish that will grow up close to the shore to try to avoid the predators that are lurking out there in the dark, in the deep water. And they need hiding places to fend off things like the birds, right? So being right up against the shore is a great spot for kind of the nursery area. And lots of species, if you just come out and stand in the water and sit still for a minute, you'll see all kinds of fish. They really are attracted to this kind of area. I'm kind of interested in that big thing over there. So let's go look over there. See what we can see. Because it's we're coming to the end of summer too, our day length is starting to shorten each day, and all of that's going to limit the amount of sunlight that our photosynthesizers, the algae and eelgrass, that they have to use their food. And so we do start to see die off beginning right about now and kind of continuing on into the winter months. So if you have waterfront property, you're probably no stranger to the big green wash up as this ulva kind of weakens and dies and then washes up. We'll see lots of it, and it won't go to waste. It'll feed things like that bacteria that we saw earlier. It'll feed the crabs and shrimp and amphipods and copepods and all the little itty bitties, all the pods, all the things with feet and things without feet even. Weird. What even is this? A hunk of asphalt? Concrete? Something? I don't know. Oh yeah, so there's rebar in it. Oh, and there's rope in it too. Huh. Interesting.
There's like some bigger barnacles.
Yeah, you can tell it's been here for a while. It's a very permanent thing because we have these larger barnacles here. These are thatched barnacles. And what I love about them is their little trapdoor has this great little zigzag on it. Little meep, meep, meep. Which is cool to see. If you were an octopus? Oh, hey, look at what I found.
That was actually more what I was expecting. But you gotta aim high sometimes.
So, this is what we would totally expect to find in a big rocky substrate like this, whatever this thing is these ochre stars. So they love to hang out and attach to a hard substrate. They do have eyes at the end of each of their arms. And I was just reading about a study done a few years ago with blue Lynchia sea stars in the tropical locations, and that the scientists concluded that they use their eyes to look for landmarks in their kind of reef environment. They don't really want to wander around in the sand because that's not where shelter is, that's not where their food source is, and so they'll kind of move around with some intention of looking where the big shape is that they're used to following. This ochre star is got this great texture to it and beautiful purple coloration, but they also come in that more ochre color, so that kind of yellowy brown tan color, if you will, is what ochre stars were named after. Here in the Puget Sound, though, we tend to have more of the purple variety for whatever reason. I'm also looking, I'm gonna have to,
Do you see the orange sea cucumber?
yes, I see the orange sea cucumber. So way back down in here, that little orange tubey blob that you see there is a sea cucumber, called an orange sea cucumber, for kind of obvious reasons.
All right.
Okay. They come in orange and red. Cucumeria miniata, how about that? If you want their scientific name. And scientific names are great because they never change. Well, that's not true. They change all the time. But they're Latinized because Latin is a language that's not currently spoken by any kind of populace. And so it's a language that won't evolve. Scientists decided we needed a way to speak about animals with just common names are not going to cut it. Because
common names, you can have 10 different names for the same thing. And those 10
yeah,
different names.
think about the roly-polies, the isopods that we were talking about earlier.
We called them roly-polies, or beach roly-polies, or garden roly-polies.
Yeah. So having this binomial nomenclature, the two-name system, allows scientists from any language, so scientists in China, scientists in Spain, they all can communicate about a particular species. And we use Latinized words because Latin's not changing. Our current language, what we're speaking, changes all the time. Think of all the new words that get added to the dictionary, or just the ways that names have changed throughout time. We have the bald eagle, which is that white-headed eagle. Oh, there's a seal, harbor seal. Just, there he goes. But bald, the word bald used to mean white-haired. And so, like, if you call your grandma bald right now, she's going to punch you in the face. But 100, 200 years ago, if you called her bald, she would be like, yeah, I have white hair. That's what that means. That's why bald eagles are called bald eagles. But the scientific name, Haliaetus leucocephalus, the white-headed sea eagle, we know immediately what species we're talking about. My favorite example of how language changes is I like to ask people, what does cool mean? When I say, hey man, you're cool, do I mean you are like not quite cold, but not warm either? Or do I mean you're awesome? And in your case, I mean you're awesome, Stina.
I'm definitely not feeling very chilled. I'm feeling chill.
But not chilled. See, that language, it's crazy. But
I'm excited because I found
what'd you find?
purple short crab.
Oh yes. Okay. Here, let me get to a good
Stuff here.
spot.
Love their polka dot claws. This again is a male with a skinny pointy belly flap. They don't
So
have hairs on
cute.
their legs, so again the scientific names can be pretty descriptive. So this is Hemigrapsis nudus. Nudus being no hairs on the leg.
Naked. A little naked leg crab.
Right.
Oh, you're
Grapsis,
so cute.
Pinchy.
And hemi refers to the hemispherical shape of their
Yeah.
pinchers.
So round little pinchers. Round
Love
little
it. If you're just tuning in now, go ahead and pop in the comments where you're watching from. We are this is Commencement Bay near Tacoma. This is Point Ruston where we are here. As you can see, there's quite a bit of development. There's lots of road traffic and people kind of everywhere. This is Ruston Way, and the whole is kind of, there's a lot of little parks. It's a very public area. Looking across the bay, we can see Commencement Bay and Browns Point, which is really heavy industry over there. Gorgeous day. Look at these clouds. Got lots of gulls hanging out, wondering what we're doing. Stina, what else are you finding? Oh, yeah.
I did give away for which species of oyster, and oh my gosh, teeny tiny crab.
Oh my gosh, that tiny.
So cute.
The people watching at home probably can't even see
Yeah.
that. Trust us, there's a tiny crab there,
Tiny
pinhead
stuff
sized.
is stuff in the water. You're like, ah! Sorry, you can't see it. But the way this umbo, the top part of a bivalve, kind of curves, so
Got like a little bit of a twist to it.
yeah, that's our giveaway that this is a Pacific oyster or a Japanese oyster. They
I always
grow
love that
pretty large.
convoluted shell at the edge. They kind of get these like fins that stick out.
Aggressive fluting. Some would say.
Aggressive fluting, yeah.
Yeah,
I like
there's
convolutions.
Convolution. That's a nice word.
There you go.
Very sharp. So another good reason to wear closed-toed shoes is these are like the scalpel of the sea.
They will slice
slice
you with
you.
no hesitation if you fall on them.
I have a sweet scar on my toe.
We got a couple of gulls here. The gulls, this is like a perfect example of a juvenile gull and an adult gull. And I'm calling them gulls because I don't know what species of gull. If you just say seagull, that's like, there's tons of species that are seagulls because this is the Salish Sea, right? So obviously they're seagulls. If they fly over there to the Commencement Bay, then they're bagels. But the browner or the more mottled coloration is the juvenile, which is great because oftentimes they're even larger than their parents because they have both mom and dad feeding them. And if you watch the gulls for any length of time, quite often you'll see these juveniles really harassing their parents until the parents finally have like had enough and then they just leave. But it's cool. It's cool to see. Oh, and this guy's, he's looking down, trying to see if there's, maybe something delicious under there. Looks like he missed. But the gulls have exceptional vision and they're really great hunters. So paying attention to what they're doing during the low tide is often a great way to spy, a cool fish right before it gets swallowed.
I have some very
Aggressive fluting.
Aggressive fluting. Yes.
Yeah, look at that.
That's just so pretty. I can tell this oyster is in a spot where it's not getting a lot of rock movement. Like, yes, there are waves here. Yes, the water moves. But because this is kind of an area with this really big rip-rap rock,
Yeah, that kind of mitigates the strong
very
flow.
protected from maybe some erosion
Breakage.
forces that would smooth out these flutes.
Wow, that's
Really pretty.
that is really pretty. I'd love to see that. If you're enjoying our broadcast, feel free to share it. You can share it on your personal page. We will post it after the fact, and I'll even upload it in high definition for you. So if you really wanted a chance to see something a little more up close, Facebook limits the size of our live streams so that they can broadcast effectively. But we'll upload it in HD so you can come back and check stuff out. And then if you really want to support us, you can donate, and you can do that right through this link on our Facebook page, or you can head on over to harborwildwatch.org. We are committed to bringing you all kinds of cool sorry, I got distracted. All kinds of cool, exciting, and interactive kind of fun learning about these marine topics. I got distracted because Tina flipped a rock, and there's some purple shore crabs. They're my favorite. And the purple and green shore crabs, they're so variable in the color. The purples are almost always purple, but the greens are seldom
green one.
Oh yeah, that is a green one. Look at you, little emerald crabby there.
Very scuttly though, so again, holding them close to the ground is helpful because they will crawl off your hand.
They will, for sure. And even the small rocks. So I'm gonna lift up this rock with just one hand. Boom. And there's crabs under there.
Crabs
Everywhere. Oh, look at that white one.
Yeah.
Looks like a little ghost crab.
And you're like, okay, I would look at you closer and see, do you have
hairs
hair
on
your
your
legs?
legs? Yeah.
No hairs?
I've gotten really good at just looking at what kind of, if it's not a purple, I know it's a green shore crab in almost every instance.
You have a different carapace.
Yeah, they're different shaped and they behave a little bit different. The purple shore crabs tend to kind of squat down and wait, whereas the greens scuttle more, I guess. But yeah, you can see how dry the ground is. We're up here. We're moved up from the shore kind of to give this seagull so he doesn't have to move. But it's drier up here. This is a much harsher environment. It's exposed to the air for longer. So the animals that live here, tougher than tough. So we've got things like barnacles, and not all the barnacles can make it and survive. So quite often you'll see dead barnacles with their open kind of shells kind of hanging out. I want to go look at those pipe remains over there. That's a good spot for some bigger creatures like ochre sea stars or mottled sea stars. Might be too high up, but we'll check. We never know what we're gonna find. Ooh, look, there's some buried trees. These are trees. This is Douglas fir bark here. I can recognize the bark pattern. Cool. This is where I don't know the history of this area. I would love to be able to educate you all on why there's trees buried into the ground here.
Where
But
the road is, there used to be, like, this is all just backfill.
oh yeah,
Built a railroad that went along Ruston Way.
yeah. So they just added this.
Yeah, and like they dug the waterfront after the
Humans, we are capable of manipulating an environment. Let me tell you, we are definite engineers. Lots more of the bricks too. Remember, we were seeing the small broken pieces of brick when we began our broadcast. Now we've got whole bricks out here, and they become habitat. So they're all encrusted with different types of barnacles.
I know there's some great Facebook pages like Puget Sound history, and then there's some that do a lot of cool stuff on the Tacoma history that if you are interested in that, we're probably not your source, but
we have our specialties, but history is not it. Although we've done a good bit of history research for the Wonders of the Waterfront walking tours that we have offered. And of course, this year we didn't offer them in person, but we are working on bringing you those in the next month or two. So stay tuned and we'll show you some interesting Gig Harbor history. Oh yeah, look, we're back into, ooh, this is smooshy wood I'm stepping on. I thought it was a rock. It is not. It's wood. Yeah, no, it's wood. Yeah, I was just gonna show right here. This is a log that's been eroded away by worms, which aren't actually worms. They're called shipworms, but they're actually clams and bivalves. They're a little mollusk that gets into the wood. And they first evolved for things like driftwood. So trees growing near the edges of a shore that would fall in due to erosion would be their main food source. And those would drift around the oceans. But then humans started putting wood into the water in the form of boats. And so these kind of ship worms really took off. I think somebody told me once that of Columbus's ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, that only one made it back. And the other two were lost to shipworms before they had a way to really kind of slow their growth. I haven't fact checked that though, so somebody Google it and let me know. History, yeah, it's not our strong suit. Oh, here's an animal. Although you wouldn't, you have no idea why I just said ooh, because you probably can't tell, but this is a chitin right here. There's another one right here. They are like little blobs. But they're a mollusk, a very ancient, primitive mollusk that's been around for millions of years. They predate the dinosaurs by a considerable amount, and yet here they are still surviving. There's around 1,000 species of them. They have 8 plates along their back that articulate and allow them to really grip onto the rock. And that's what they do. They just sit there attached to the rock. They'll eat algae. They don't really move around too much, so usually when you find one, that's totally its home. And if I thought there was a way that I could gently pry it off the rock, I would show you its underside, but there is no way. They are so stuck down.
So Rachel's prediction that this big structure would lead to larger life.
Oh, yeah.
Is correct. There's some sea stars further down in the tube.
Okay,
and
here's what I'm going to do. I
anemone.
can't even see, but I'm
just
going to shove my phone camera down there. See if you can see on the wall there is... It's probably not in focus. Let me go from the other side. Why not? So, sea stars really love big permanent structures with all kinds of encrusting life. So they can eat these barnacles. But let's go in and see. There we go. There's a pretty ochre sea star. You can probably see Stina down in there. Stina, say hi.
Hello. I noticed there's a dangle between you and I.
Oh yes, there's a dangle.
Sea anemone.
Oh yeah.
Gravity's cruel.
Gravity is cruel to anemones. They have a hard time when the tide leaves them high and dry. They're entirely water-filled. They don't have any hard parts to their body, so it makes it really difficult. They would have to use all their muscles to really stay tight and hanging, so instead they just droop. It's one of our number one questions we get asked. Hey, I saw this rock and it was covered with a bunch of like balls of snot. Yeah, those are anemones. I'm noticing the ground is really like soft. So there's a good amount of soft sediment here underneath all this brick and kind of rubble. Let's see if there's anybody in here. This one's a little bit higher up, so might not have the same life. Even just the difference of a couple of feet can mean the difference between survival or thriving or not surviving at all. So sometimes it's random where we find sea creatures, but other times you can predict it.
Why is there rockweed?
Yeah, why is there rockweed down here? I'm puzzled by that too. Rockweed should be, up there. And there probably is some up there, but who knows? Again, we're seeing more of this sort of water flow. This comes from the very beach itself, kind of works like a sponge and then slowly releases this water. There may also be a storm drain that's letting out nearby. Ooh, Stina! This is not a creature I would expect to find right here on the beach. Anybody want to guess? In the middle of Tacoma, we've got some tracks of an animal that has 2 toes. We've got tracks of multiple animals. Or maybe it's the same one who just turned around. And they walked on top of some bird tracks. Interesting. Wonder if they're up there and we could see them. Those are the tracks of a deer. So deer do come down to the intertidal zone, and they've been known to eat kelp and things. But you can always tell deer prints because they have the pointed in the front and then rounded in the back, and they have 2 toes as they walk along. It helps them grip the ground really well. That's just not, of all of our beach walks, I did not expect to see evidence of deer on the Tacoma waterfront. Anything in there, Stina?
There's some jingles, sparkle, and of these orange.
Any good echoes? I just see your yellow boots. All right, now we're into some more kind of sand. Oh, I hear and see a little killdeer, which is a piper, a snowy, kind of a plover type species. And
I wonder if it has the little 3-pronged footprint. The dinosaur footprint.
Oh yeah, that dinosaur footprint. The three-toed probably is the killdeer. They're really noisy birds, so they're pretty easy to identify. They're also territorial, and they lay their eggs right on the beach. And so quite often you'll be walking along and you'll just hear this commotion. And you know it's a killdeer who's very upset that you're near her nest. Let's see. Oh, we have a jelly.
Sad jelly.
Oh, yeah, it is a sad jelly. That's an upside down moon jelly. Or not moon jelly. What am I saying? Lion's mane jelly. Sorry, sometimes words are hard. We've done a lot of beach walks this year. A lot of videoing.
Talking out loud.
But this one's great because we can see the texture of it. This is the underside, and most of the soft kind of mesenteries and the digestive tissue is gone. And if I flip it over, you can see the smoothness of this top surface compared to the textured of the underside.
I'm going to point out that Rachel is only touching the outside, or like that top
Yes.
side.
I did not reach down in here to touch.
Thanks,
because
sir.
there are stinging cells, and this is an animal. If it doesn't have a brain, it doesn't know when it's dead, and so sometimes they will continue to sting even after the animal has perished. And for these animals, anything that they bump into is enough to kill them. So when you see them on the shore, even if it's even still moving or pulsing, it's probably a goner. They're so delicate. They really can't stand bumping into things. And in public aquariums, when you see jellies, they're always in a rounded tank. And they're in a rounded tank from the moment that they transform from their polyp stage.
I wanted to give a shout out to one of our fabulous volunteers, Zach. In a past summer, he wanted to know if a jellyfish like this would still sting, and it's like clearly, obviously dead, tentacles ripped off, unattached, and he decided the only way to find out was to grab the tentacles, and it definitely still stings.
Definitely stings.
Like
Thanks for doing the work there, Zach, to let us know.
Not that I want my volunteers.
It's a pure scientist right there.
But like moments like that definitely make me miss interacting in person with.
Yeah, we miss all of you. From our volunteers to the people who just attend our public beach walks. It's been a weird summer, guys. And we acknowledge that. It's going to be a weird fall too, but we're here. We're committed to keep bringing you awesome digital content. So please like, share, all those things.
With us, you're still welcome to join. We have the best volunteer pin of 2020 ever. So that in itself might be worth joining our volunteer program.
We have every year Harbor WildWatch designs a little lapel pin, and it's a different animal each year. And this year was supposed to be the year of the bull kelp, but we very quickly decided to change that up. Okay, can we talk about that mountain? Look at that beautiful mountain over there.
Yeah.
That's Mount Rainier. So gorgeous. All 14,000 feet of it. It's big. It's beautiful. If you've ever climbed it, go ahead and pop in the comments. And I don't mean summited it. I just mean if you've gone hiking on Mount Rainier. It's a really exceptional place. Very, very beautiful. So what's interesting, some of these are cement and some of these are logs. And some of these are metal, which is weird. Ooh, this black mud is why you at home are glad you don't have smell-o-vision, because it is stinky. And the particle size of this, I would reach down and show you, but it's one of those smells that like you get it on your hands and it stays there for hours. Which here's my tip. This is, I have lots of weird, quirky advice, but if you ever get a smell on your hands that just doesn't seem to want to come off, grab yourself a curved piece of stainless steel. I like a stainless steel spoon. They even make stainless steel bars of soap, and use it with your favorite soap and just wash using the curvature of the steel. It helps like something with the ions or some sort of weird science behind it. I didn't make this up, but it really does work.
By some Canada geese.
Oh yeah. Oh, we've got all kinds of shorebirds over there. There's great blue herons, some Canada geese, more juvenile gulls. Nice. It's always a good sign when you see birds in a habitat. Oh, and that killdeer. You can hear it before you see it. When you see birds in a habitat, they're such mobile animals, right? They can fly, that if a habitat doesn't meet their needs, they won't hang out here. So it would be alarming if we never saw birds, but the fact that we see birds from time to time is always a good sign. We even participate in some community science monitoring shorebirds during the winter months. So if that's your jam, if you wanna go look for birds in the cold months, what is it? October through March. Yeah, so the cold months. If you want to learn, get trained up on how to identify these shorebirds and count them.
You don't have to be a birder to get involved.
No.
It's a great way to learn birds if you're looking at them very intently, identifying them, and you have a team who
they'll help answer your questions. But it will really flex your powers of observation. You'll get good at a glance noticing things. Okay, got a board with surprisingly nothing underneath it. I thought there'd be a ton of things. Okay. Little crabs at least. Well,
bacteria. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, you really see the darkness, this blackness of that bacteria.
Also, just like erosion. You do those sand tables where you watch how water moves dirt.
Yeah, this is on a miniature level.
Yeah,
little watersheds of where the water's going to go and how it's going to travel and move across the landscape.
To one bigger body. Wherever you are in the world, you're part of a watershed. The water that flows from your land always goes somewhere. The Puget Sound, perhaps. So taking care of that land, make sure it's not polluted, so the water doesn't pick up pollution and bring it to places
like this beautiful spot. And I know the video doesn't do a good job of showing you just like the majesty of this place, but we've got a giant mountain, these just incredible big high bluff overlooks lots of marine life and shorebirds, these great clouds. And then we have just big industry. We've got Stina, she's beautiful too. We've got people, making a place to live, the old ferry, these giant super tankers that are bringing things all around the world. You really feel connected to, there's planes up there in the sky. There's a lot to observe here. It's very busy here in Tacoma. Very stark contrast to where we were yesterday out on the Olympic Peninsula at Salt Creek. And there was only a few humans out there that we could see. Maybe a boat or two.
Yeah, thinking about ways you can coexist with these natural places and make sure our actions don't negatively impact them.
It's pretty key.
Things.
Yeah, we're getting
future here because Tacoma definitely has a pretty polluted past. And, they've come a long way in cleaning up the waterfront. And there's a cool race that goes from one Superfund site to the other, the 70-48. So you start in Tacoma and then use a human-powered craft to get yourself up to Port Townsend. You have 2 days to go, about 70 miles. And
kind of crazy to see. Here's some geese coming through.
that I don't think happened this year. Darn COVID.
So we've got the geese in this area. They'll have their babies in the springtime, and it's always kind of fun to try to guess which ones are the adults and which ones are the juveniles when we get to this stage of the game where they're almost all the same size. And what I generally look for is just changes in their feathers. The juveniles aren't quite as bright white on their heads. They also have a little bit smaller beaks, which is cool. Okay, and we've got some feeding activity down here where this juvenile gull is just begging from the parent who is reluctantly giving up some lunch. Okay, I'll feed you. And that's a well-fed juvenile too, because he's bigger than mom or dad, which is cool. Oh, Lindsay says, I do a good gull impression. I do.
Here, let me hold that camera.
Oh, gosh.
Rachel, speak to the gulls.
We'll see. I don't think they'll answer me.
They're, because Lindsay, you're my favorite for recommending that. Okay.
I don't know
What did you say to them, Rachel? Jeez.
They are pretty funny to watch. Bird watching is a great way to get kind of focused in on bird behavior and why are they doing the things that they're doing and how does it help their survival. Parents is like, I'm out of here. Meanwhile, the heron in the background is just sitting there. I always think of ourselves as herons, you know, when we're walking along in the water, trying not to be seen by the wildlife so we can sneak up on them. It's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that a good point to wrap up?
A good spot as any to wrap up. I'm going to stick around and enjoy the majesty of this place and poke back along the waterfront as we make our way back to our cars. But as always, thank you for tuning in with us. We really do appreciate all the viewers. Otherwise, we'd just be doing this for nobody. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks for your questions, because your wonder and like you learning more makes you more likely to protect these places. So we really, really appreciate that, and that engagement with us is so nice.
Yeah, we don't want to, we wouldn't be doing this out here just for ourselves. Maybe we would, but we really do enjoy the opportunity to share what we know with you, to bring you cool new locations, and to be able to learn and have fun with you. If you want to support Harbor WildWatch, we can do that right here through Facebook, or you can make a donation over on our website, harborwildwatch.org. And if you can't give with money, that is just fine too. Give us a small section of your time, share, comment, subscribe to our YouTube pages, go over to our TikToks and like those things. You know, we've got lots of ways, lots of media outlets for you. Engage with them all. It really helps get the word out and spread that farther in our community. If you want to volunteer with us, we still have opportunities for volunteers as well, and you can reach out to us by contacting Stina directly, stina@harborwildwatch.org. Shoot her an email, let her know you want to be involved. And
Get you involved in this digital life. It's exciting.
Engage with us. As always, we just really appreciate the support we get from our community. So thanks for learning with us. Thanks for having fun. Any other words of wisdom, Stina?
I think you got it.
I think we got it. All right.
Have a great rest of your summer.
We'll be back soon with more awesome digital content. It'll just be a little different.
Can you sign us off with a seagull call, Rachel?